Narrator, right in the pulsing heart of downtown Dubai, just a stone's throw from the iconic Burj Khalifa and the roaring crowds of the Dubai Mall, a $1.2 billion megatall skyscraper complex sits dead, abandoned, and rotting under the blistering Arabian sun. For 6 long years, this colossal concrete carcass has been exposed to the elements. The massive tower, cranes above it are frozen like skeletal monuments. The exposed rebar is visibly rusting, and the clock is ticking loudly. The world's elite, global investors, and millions of tourists are flooding into this city every single month. And this towering catastrophe is the first thing they see when they look at the skyline. This isn't just an eyesore. This is a catastrophic engineering and financial failure consisting of 3 unfinished luxury towers, scaling up to 49, 40, and 28 stories, sprawling across premium, high-value real estate. Over $1.2 billion in hard capital has already vanished into this desert dirt. More than 700 creditors, contractors, and suppliers are aggressively fighting over the carcass. Worse yet, the extreme desert elements are actively reclaiming the structure. Intense heat expansion is warping the exposed joints, and aggressive saltwater mist from the nearby Arabian Gulf is triggering severe glass fatigue and structural degradation. What was meant to be the ultimate crown jewel of luxury expat living, featuring hundreds of ultra-premium apartments and a 5-star branded resort hotel, has instead become the largest, most humiliating ghost project in the modern history of the Emirates. The mega developer behind it, a once unstoppable multinational conglomerate that built massive luxury resorts across 3 continents, is now completely insolvent. Its stock has cratered to zero. So, how did a trillion-dollar playground for the ultra-wealthy allow a billion-dollar monument of failure to freeze right in its flagship district? To understand this architectural nightmare, we have to look at the exact moment the money stopped and the desert heat took over. Narrator, to comprehend how a $1.2 billion masterpiece turns into a towering graveyard, you have to look at the brutal engineering timeline. The year is 2014. Dubai's real estate market is on absolute fire. Capital is pouring in from every corner of the globe. Developers are arriving with blank checks, eager to push the absolute limits of architectural height and luxury. Enter our mega developer. Back then, they were a juggernaut with over $18 billion in global assets. In mid-2014, they dropped a cool $150 million just to secure this prime plot of land. The marketing promised an unprecedented oasis. 3 glass towers, over 500 ultra-luxury condominiums, a world-class boutique hotel, and massive high-end retail plazas. Construction kicks off with massive hype in 2016. Thousands of workers are deployed, massive concrete pours run 24/7, and the structure rapidly ascends. By late 2018, the raw skeletons of the 49, 40, and 28-story towers are fully framed, piercing the desert skyline. But in mega engineering, projects survive on capital dependency. Billion-dollar skyscrapers aren't paid for in one lump sum. They rely on precision-timed tranches, cash injections unlocked only when specific construction milestones are hit. If the funding pipeline clogs for even a week, the entire site chokes. And in November 2019, the pipeline didn't just clog. It shattered. Sudden regulatory shifts in liquidity freezes thousands of miles away completely severed the developer's access to their offshore capital. The cash dried up instantly. Cranes ground to a sudden, screeching halt. The workers were sent home. What followed wasn't a sudden explosion or a dramatic demolition. It was something far more insidious. Absolute silence. The project froze mid-stride. The glass facade was only half installed, leaving the raw concrete interiors completely exposed to Dubai's unforgiving elements. In this region, a stalled site is a ticking clock. Without a finished exterior envelope, the towers are helpless against extreme heat expansion. Daytime temperatures routinely cross 50 degrees Celsius, expanding the bare concrete, while plunging nighttime temperatures cause it to contract. This thermal cycling puts immense stress on uninsulated joints. Simultaneously, hypersaline humidity from the Gulf enters the open structures, settling on bare steel rebar and triggering rapid structural oxidation. The desert was actively eating the billion-dollar concrete skeleton. Narrator, if you think this is just a case of a developer running out of money, think again. The terrifying reality of this disaster is that the money actually existed. It was sitting completely intact in overseas accounts. But due to sudden, rigid geopolitical freezes and banking regulations, the developer was legally blocked from moving a single dollar into the UAE. The plug wasn't pulled by a bankruptcy court. It was pulled by international regulatory warfare. Between 2020 and 2023, the developer tried to pull off a desperate shell game. They announced massive joint ventures with new international equity funds to rescue the site. Every single deal collapsed during due diligence. Why? Because the engineering risks had grown too severe, and the legal liabilities were a toxic minefield. By 2024, the site entered a state of absolute legal limbo. A staggering 700 creditors, ranging from global Tier 1 engineering firms to local concrete suppliers, slapped massive liens on the property. The general contractor, owed tens of millions of dollars, packed up their equipment and walked off the site. This disaster highlights a terrifying parallel across modern, hyper-rapid urban developments. The business model of relying entirely on foreign capital to erect luxury skyscrapers creates a fatal structural vulnerability. When the home country of that capital changes its economic laws, local authorities are left completely powerless. Even worse, the local municipality has no immediate mechanism to seize or demolish a stalled mega-project of this scale. In the UAE, private property rights and international investment protections are incredibly robust. The city can issue compliance fines for aesthetic blight or lack of site security, but they cannot legally march in, confiscate a $1.2 billion asset, and hand it to someone else. Meanwhile, the environmental toll accelerates. In Dubai's coastal environment, an unfinished skyscraper faces an invisible enemy: groundwater table fluctuations and coastal soil dynamics. Without active dewatering systems running on-site, moisture creeps into the deepest foundations. On reclaimed and coastal tracts, this can lead to subtle, catastrophic shifts, ground settling, and localized sinking. A hyper-luxury asset is transformed into a multi-million-ton concrete anchor, slowly deteriorating in the sand. Narrator. Behind the silent cranes and the rotting concrete lies a trail of human and financial devastation. This isn't just a corporate balance sheet error. It is a disaster that shattered lives, bankrupted businesses, and trapped hundreds of innocent investors. First, look at the local subcontractors. When the cash pipeline froze, the general contractor wasn't the only one left bleeding. Dozens of specialized Emirati and expat-owned subfirms, the concrete pouring crews, the glass manufacturers, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractor, found themselves holding worthless invoices. They had already bought the materials. They had already paid their laborers. The outstanding debt quickly piled up to a crushing $130 million. For several small to medium engineering companies, this single project was their entire portfolio. When the developer defaulted, it triggered a domino effect of corporate liquidations across the region. Hundreds of innocent construction workers, engineers, and project managers suddenly lost their livelihoods, forced to exit the country as their employers went under. Then, there are the buyers. Approximately 400 affluent expats and international investors signed luxury purchase agreements, handing over massive, multi-million-dollar down payments. These weren't just speculative day traders. These were families, high-net-worth individuals, and retirees who were sold on a flawless paradise. They bought into the dream of a branded 5-star residence with panoramic views of the Dubai skyline. Instead, they are trapped in a legal black hole. While local escrow regulations are tightly designed to safeguard buyer funds, chasing a foreign-backed developer that has plunged into international insolvency is a jurisdictional nightmare. The money they poured into the ground is effectively locked in a legal vault, tangled up in cross-border bankruptcy disputes that could take a decade to untangle. And the physical structure itself is crying out under the stress. Engineers monitoring the site have raised alarms over glass fatigue. The premium double-glazed facade panels that were installed before the shutdown have been subjected to unmitigated, extreme thermal cycling for 6 straight years. Without internal climate control to regulate the pressure and temperature differentials, the structural silicone seals are drying out and failing. These multi-hundred-pound glass sheets are under immense structural strain. If a major Shamal windstorm hits the city, the upper levels risk shedding massive shards of fatigued glass onto the premium downtown thoroughfares below. Narrator: So, what is the endgame for this $1.2 billion monument to risk? The billionaire founder of the conglomerate has been stripped of power. His global empire is completely liquidated, and the company's stock has vanished from international exchanges. The original investment is gone, entirely unrecoverable. Right now, the site sits in a specialized tribunal bankruptcy auction. The leading bids are coming in at less than half of what it cost to build. But even if an ultra-wealthy sovereign fund or a rival mega-developer swoops in tomorrow, signs the deed, and mobilizes an army of engineers, the math is completely broken to safely inspect, structurally remediate, and fully finish 3 massive luxury towers that have been roasting and rotting for 6 years will take a minimum of 4 to 5 years. The city is growing at a breakneck pace. Global summits are booking out nearby venues, and millions of eyes are tracking this skyline every single day. The concrete skeleton cannot be hidden. It will remain standing as a stark reminder of what happens when a city relies on hyper-aggressive foreign capital without absolute structural safeguards. The professional engineering consensus is clear. Municipalities must mandate ironclad completion bonds held by domestic financial institutions. If a developer defaults, the bond instantly triggers, funding the completion or immediate demolition of the site. Without this, every booming metropolis is running the exact same gamble that Dubai ran here. Some cities just haven't lost the bet yet. Drop a comment below. What should be done with this billion-dollar ghost project? Should a new developer spend half a decade trying to save the fatigued structure? Should the city completely demolish it and start over? Or should it be left standing as a permanent warning to the real estate world? Let us know, and hit subscribe for more engineering disaster breakdowns.